Hello everyone, to our new viewers who are joining us for the very first time on Iran Art Guide. Welcome, and to those of you who've been following us, welcome back. Thank you for joining us for another edition of your comprehensive guide to Iranian art and its artisans. Let's begin. This week I'll be sitting down with two visual artists. One practices a form of traditional Iranian painting and the other dabbles in digital art. This episode will also include features and recommendations per usual, but before all that, let's lend our ears to a story and delve deeper into the history of Iranian art. Let's begin by going back to over 500 years ago, the time of the Ilkhanid and Timurid dynasties, a time that witnessed the revolution of the art of miniature.
It is often said that the foundation of Iranian miniature was consolidated in the Middle Ages under Mongol and Chinese influences. Ilkhanid and Timurid dynasties, which ruled Iran over the Middle Ages, were of Mongol and Central Asian origin and maintained very close ties with the East. After learning the basics of Asian painting via Mongols, Iranian artists quickly adjusted to their newly acquired techniques to form a uniquely Iranian way of seeing and painting the world. Although years later, during the Safavid times, the Iranian style of painting underwent another metamorphosis under Western influences, Iranian miniature and illustration have always remained quintessentially Asian. The introduction of Western perspective in the 17th century didn't much change the non-proportional two-dimensional way of seeing the world that Iranian artists had perfected in the 1300s. The most important quality of Ilkhanid and Timurid painting is their tendency to interpret the external reality instead of faithfully representing it. This liberated Iranian visual artists from the drudgery of painting every single detail, and thus enabled them to become superb visual storytellers, showing only those details that mattered in the story. This fine quality is observable in the works of great masters such as Kamaluddin Behzad.
Visual storytelling is still quite popular in modern-day Iran. In fact, there are artists out there whose sole objective is to create fictional characters who serve as heroes in the realm of fantasy. In just a moment, we're going to get in touch with a very talented artist called Faraz Shanyar, who's currently living in Sweden and specializes in concept art. So we've moved to another studio to make a Skype call to Faraz Shanyar. Before you guys came on, we talked a little bit and I got to know him a little bit, but I'm going to hand over the mic to him so that he can introduce himself in his own words. Go ahead, Shanyar.
Hi, I'm Faraz Shanyar. As it mentioned before, I'm concept artist. I do concept art for video games and movies. And at the moment, I'm working at the machine games.
Oh, really? Can you name a couple of the movies you've worked on or the games that we know?
I worked on Lion King, the last one, the 3D one. I worked on Aladdin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's lovely. Who was the character you worked on in Aladdin?
Genie. I did design for jewelries and character look. I worked on some scenes for Lion King, the fighting scene.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about working with such companies?
It's a fun experience. It could be a little bit frustrating because of the overwhelming work sometimes. It's not as amazing as you see from distance because lots of people actually really dream about these type of jobs, but it's a fun thing to do, but not as easy as most of the people think. A little bit chaotic sometimes. You don't have that much of freedom. You have to follow rules.
How so?
Because a franchise that is like developed through the years. Lots of different people worked on it, and there's a vision behind that. So you have to match your ideas with that franchise. You can't go crazy. You can't go like full on creative, and do whatever you want. You have
so
to
you're not led to your own devices. You can't let your imagination run wild. You're saying that working with such companies, you're actually limited in comparison to what people think.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so how long did it take you to get to a point to be able to actually sign with such companies?
Most of my career was in Iran. I worked on magazines as an illustrator. I did 2D animation, and I developed my skills through years and years, and I put my works on social media, so I got noticed by some artists. Some great artists shared my works on social media, and I got the attention from different companies. Actually, about MPC, the company that I worked on in London, one of my favorite artists named Dermot Covers introduced me to that company, and I did some tests for them on Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Okay, when was this?
It was 2016. I was in Canada. I was working on games. When I got the offer when I got the email from MPC, from our art director.
Okay, was that your first big break?
My big break was, I can say, in Canada. I started working on game franchises, like different game franchises, like Game of Thrones. I did character design for the Telltale's Game of Thrones. They didn't credit me because of the outsourcing companies' laws. Some of them are like that. They don't credit artists, and that's an issue in our industry.
So, you're an Iranian artist who has actually put in a lot of effort, and you've done a lot, and you've managed to get to where you are, signing with big companies. How do you assess Iranian artists currently in Iran? Do you think at which level are we compared to the world?
Surprisingly, we are very good. Actually, it's not just me. I've heard it from different artists about Iranian artists. We are kind of limited because of the travel bans, visa issues. But even with those issues, you can see lots of really good artists around the world. And inside of Iran, I know amazing artists. And I'm sure if they didn't have these troubles, they would be way more famous. And I see the huge potential in Iran arts. The culture actually support artists. Iranian culture, and it's a good culture, and it's pushing people to be artists. I learned a lot from my previous generation of artists. They helped me, and I see huge potential in the next generation.
Okay, now let's go back to the very beginning. What actually led you to concept art?
I think my love to drawing. Yeah, I always love to draw.
How old were you when you first took a pen to a place?
I don't remember, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to draw with my father. My father he was a lawyer, but he was doing art as a hobby. So anytime he came home, he was tired. He took a pen and he started drawing, and I was sitting beside him. I was drawing with him, and he helped me. So that was a huge motivation, I think, for me. So I didn't stop drawing. I kept continuing drawing from childhood until now.
Okay. Now, I see a lot of equipment behind you with the computers and everything. Okay, so someone looking at you right now, an inspiring artist, might say that, okay, he has everything, he's got there, he isn't in our shoes, he isn't in our situation. So can you tell me the difficulties you had to struggle with to get to where you are?
Actually, concept art is not that expensive compared to other type of arts. You just need a PC, which is like, I think everyone has it, and a device called tablet, digital tablet, or drawing tablet. They call it drawing tablet. They are like different brands and different franchises and different prices. It's not that expensive, I can say, compared to even traditional art. Because in traditional art, you need material. You need oil, paint, you need canvas. But in digital art, you just need a PC and drawing tablet. And it's not that.
Okay, right now you completely separated modern art and concept art and digital art from traditional art. Even though they are immaterial, separate completely, what elements do they have in common?
Digital art is a technique. It's exactly like other techniques. It's not different from that. I cannot separate them. It's like digital art is accessible, it's easy to use, and it's fast. That's why I'm using it. And it's cheap compared to traditional art. Traditional art is more fun, more accidents, more freedom in there.
Okay.
Because you don't have Control Z, you cannot go back to the previous stage. So you have to risk.
Do you have any common theme running through most of your illustrations?
Yeah, but I really don't want to talk about that because...
You don't want to spill your secrets?
Not secret, it's just... my personal works, they have some kind of... it's about subjects.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the workshops you held?
Yeah, I had different workshops in Iran. I had one workshop in London, and I had another one in Russia, but it got canceled because of coronavirus.
Unfortunately.
It's basically I'm showing how do I do my concept art. How's the structure? How do I do the sketching, and how moving forward step by step.
Okay, thank you very much for the time, and that was brilliant. We learned a lot about your line of work. Thank you very much. Is there anything you want to say to the people who are watching?
No, just thanks for the time, and that's it. Thank you.
And that's it, and we're going to move on to our next part in just a minute. While we are still on the subject of digital art, here are some good recommendations for you. If you're a fan of digital painting, then you might enjoy the works of Mir Farhad Muqimi and his exhibition, which has been made available online because of the corona restrictions and social distancing. The only thing you have to do is pay a visit to this website, lilit.ir, lilit.ir/59705. Muqimi is an independent artist who was born in the city of Rasht in the year 1960 and has so far tried his hand at painting, writing and poetry. He studied in the US and published a couple of works in the UK, and after that he moved back to his hometown and is currently living in the province of Gilan. Hopes and dreams have always been the main themes of Muqimi's paintings, which are in a way rather abstract, if I do say so myself. before we start talking to our second guest, I'd like to tell you a little bit more about a design or pattern that I noticed in most of his paintings, which is actually a design or a theme that's quite common in most Iranian paintings, and it's called the Gul o Morg motif, which is Persian, of course, and translates in English into flower and bird motifs. Let's have a look.
Gul o Morg, literally translated as flower and bird, is one of the most recognizable themes in Iranian painting. Whether you are interested in miniatures dating back to Safavid times or Qajar ceramic painting, there is a good chance that you have seen birds and flowers painted next to each other. In such paintings, the bird, which symbolizes a lover, is often depicted while eyeing its beloved, the flower, with a wistful, longing look upon its face. Why the male bird is in love with a plant instead of, say, a female bird is a question that has irritated generations of Iranian art critics. But the Gul o Morg theme should not be taken literally. The Gul o Morg style of painting has its roots in Iranian mysticism, in which platonic and otherworldly loves are praised. Although birds and flowers as independent motifs were present in Iranian paintings since the 15th century, it was in the 1600s that Gul o Morg painting really took off. And the symbolic juxtaposition of birds and flowers has continued to this day in Iranian art.
I personally love the mixture of bird and flower patterns, or as we mentioned, the Gul o Morg motifs in paintings. But some people are of the belief that these kind of motifs are too traditional for today's world. We're going to head over to Mohammad Moradi's workshop to find out if this modern artist thinks the same.
من محمد مرادی هستم، شناخته شده در شاخه نگارگری تذهیب هنر نقاشی ایرانی. شروع کارم با نقاشی رنگی روغن و مداد رنگی بود، یعنی تخصصی کارم رنگی روغن و مداد رنگی بود که از سال 78 حدوداً با این هنر آشنا شدم و وارد این عرصه شدم. کلمه مینیاتور یک کلمه لاتینه، فرانسویه و زبان خودمون بخوایم بگیم نگارگری واژه درست‌تری. یه اصطلاح عمومی هم براش به کار میبرم به اسم نقاشی ایرانی که شاخه‌های مختلف داره، شامل نگارگری میشه که همون به اسم مینیاتور میشناسن، گل و مرغ، تذهیب و تشییع. این هنر میشه گفت از دوره ساسانی شکل گرفته و شروعش برای دوره ساسانی و پیروان مکتب مانی بوده. بعد از ورود اسلام به ایران هنرمندای که مونده بودن از گروه مانویون سعی کردن این هنر رو زنده نگه دارن و حالا سیاستی به خرج دادن، اومدن کتاب‌های دینی از جمله مهمترینشون قرآن رو تزیین کردن، آراستن با گذاشتن نشانه‌ها و المان‌های که ما الان به اسم تزیین میشناسیم. تذهیب به معنای زنندود کردنه و جایی به تسریع هم میشناسن به معنای استفاده کردن از سنگ‌های قیمتی و تزئینی در کاری که هنرمندان سنگ‌ها رو میساییدن و تبدیل به رنگش میکردن، در کنار طلا استفاده میکردن. تشعیر از یک مرحله که گذشت و کتاب‌های متعددی رو شروع کردن به آراستن و تزیین کردن. حواشی کتاب یک سری صفحه‌های خالی وجود داشت، سفیدی کاغذ می‌آمدن با نقوش گل‌های خطایی اسلیمی، بعدها به تدریج گل و بوته و نقوش حیوانی وارد شد و نقوش‌های متعددی رو استفاده کردن و از طلا کمک می‌گرفتن و این قسمت بیاض و سفیدی کاغذ رو نقش می‌انداختن. حدوداً 200-300 سال پیش کم کم گل و بوته و پرنده و گل به شکل خیلی مجزا از نقوش دیگه شروع کرد به هویدا شدن، نشون داده شدن توسط هنرمندا. همونو روی جلد هم کار کردن. جلدهایی مثل قرآن فقط از گل و بوته استفاده میکردن. جلدهایی مثل کتاب‌های شعر حافظ و سعدی و اینا از پرندم توش استفاده میکردن که این جلدهایی که ساخته میشد به اسم گل و مرغ‌های لاکی شناخته شد. وقتی ما گل و مرغ میکشیم داریم بهشت رو طراحی میکنیم. شما تو گل و مرغ هیچ وقت نمیبینید از جای نور بتابه. همونش که میگن تو بهشت هر شی نور خودشو داره دیگه نیست. یک جسم زمینی نیستش که منتظر باشه چراغی روشن باشه خورشیدی نور بهش بتابه. میگن در بهشت هر جسمش نور از خودش داره، یعنی نور درون خودشه. تو گل و مرغ هم ما دقیقا همینه داریم. هر گلی نور خودشه داره. هیچ وقت مثل نقاشی قبل مثلا تو شام آخر قشنگ نورهایی که رو قاشق داده شده مشخص از گوشه تصویر نوری که وارد شده رو اون قاشق. این ذات نقاشی غربه، ولی تو نقاشی ما هیچ وقت اینجوری نداریم نور از جایی بتابه. هر شی نور خودشه داره. نمایشگاه مختلفی که شرکت کردم بیننده ها معمولا استقبال خیلی زیادی از این هنر دارن. اولا که بهترین مکان برای ارائه اثر ما، هنر ما همین محدودی خاورمیانه خودمونه، چون هنوز از هند به این ور دارن کار میکنن و خیلی خوبم دارن کار میکنن و تا ترکیه و کشور حوزه خلیج فارس. البته اونا کشور عربی بیشتر توی حیطه تنصیب بیشتر فعالیت میکنن. بیشتر نمایشگاه یا جشنواره که شرکت کردم توی این منطقه بوده. من کشوری که نمایشگاه داشتم تاجیکستان بوده، شهر دوشنبه، و حالا ورکشاپی که تو دانشگاه هنرشون داشتیم و نمایشگاهمون هم تو موزه ملیشون بوده. اندونزی بوده جاکارتا و بازم اونجا دانشگاه هنر زیباشون دعوت کرده بودن برای ورکشاپ و برگزاری حالا کنفرانس اینا رفته بودیم. قطر بوده، الجزایر بوده، امارات بوده که دبی بوده، شارژه بوده، ابوظبی بوده، ترکیه چند دفعه‌ای بوده، جای مختلف.
Today we learned about a recurring theme in Iranian paintings and its symbolic meaning. And I'm sure you must have thought that there must be more to symbolism in Iranian visual arts. And you're absolutely right. Here are some fun facts about symbols and symbolism in illustration, miniature and painting.
Seamorg, a benevolent mythical bird, is perhaps the most well-known symbol used in art and literature in Iran. The mythical creature symbolizes wisdom, eternity, and at times the Holy Spirit. Seamorg features in Sheikh Fariduddin Attar's magnum opus, The Conference of the Birds, as well as in countless miniatures and illustrations. Angels depicted as humans with halos and wings are mainly used by Western masters. However, they are also present in Iranian paintings in a slightly different form. Winged humanoids are a recurring theme in Iranian art even before the Islamic period. This is easily observable in figures unearthed in Persepolis and Pasargad. Trees and plants also carry a symbolic value. The cypress tree, for example, appears in Persian poetry and miniature, signifying freedom or a tall and well-shaped beloved.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of Iran Art Guide. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the program. Hope to see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.